I'm Niki Jones. I've been using Curable since July 2018. I've had chronic pain since I was about 16. I had a whiplash injury which carried on for quite a few years. But my main problem came in, it started on Christmas Eve '02, which was, it was eventually diagnosed as trigeminal neuralgia, which is facial pain. It was basically like somebody hit me on the side of the face with a cattle prod. It literally caused me to fall on the floor. It was such a astoundingly awful pain, and it never stopped. It just kept hitting. It's very paroxysmal, so sort of it would hit and then stop and then hit again. I was lucky. A lot of people can spend years getting diagnosed. I was diagnosed very quickly. It was very classic. And because I had private health insurance with my work, I was operated on within, it was at the end of May '03, I was operated on. They go into the brainstem where the trigeminal nerve comes out of the brainstem. There's often a blood vessel that compresses the nerve root, which is what they think causes the pain. So they pad it up with Teflon. So they did that, and I, got better, and that was great. And after a couple of months of recovery, I went back to work, and I worked in the centre of London, and they were, sort of finding out, phased return sort of thing, and I thought everything was fine, and I literally got into work, and they made me redundant just on my first day back. No warning, nothing. So it was a huge emotional shock. So I walked into another job. I was left there in the centre of London with a rent and 2 horses and, a life to try and, carry on with. But the pain just came back. It just rocketed back as bad as ever. And I had to move back to Wales, to my parents' home, because I just couldn't cope on my own. And the drugs that they give you are quite disabling as well. They have a lot of very horrible side effects. I couldn't walk properly, and it was really horrible. And this pain all the time is worse than shingles pain. It's really horrible, and it's your face. So it kind of you can't escape from it. It's there all the time. And I fell into a bit of a hole for a year or so. I didn't have the proper sort of medical care because I'd moved and found another surgeon who operated again. And this made absolutely no difference. It actually made things worse. It actually damaged the nerves. So I had constant pain then as well. And this just kept going on, and I was getting increasingly more disabled and, spiraling down as you do, and on all kinds of trying drug after drug after drug, medication. And then I did a 3-week residential pain management course, which covered some of the same stuff that Curable does, but this was back in, what is it, '05 this was by this time, and things have moved on a lot since then. And it was still very much sort of pain gate theory and, very physically orientated. And although they did relaxation and meditation, it wasn't a very important part of it all. It was pacing and stuff. It was all about managing your pain and learning to live again whilst coping with the pain. And I did improve from that. And then I had another operation where they took the Teflon out, and that again helped a bit, but as soon as I got into any kind of stressful situation, the pain came back. It was just going on, and I had strategies. I learned to live with it. I never fell into a massive depression or anything, but it was pretty horrible. And it also, the nerve was increasingly damaged, and they diagnosed it as cluster headaches, but it wasn't your classic cluster headaches, but it was basically really bad sessions of this pain, which were, all encompassing. You just lie there and hope that you would die. And I'm on, you know, I mean, on fentanyl at this point, and it didn't touch it. And this was meant I couldn't leave the house really, because these attacks could happen at any time, and they were very much related to how much I did. So the more active I was, so the more emotionally stressed I was, but the more physically active I was, the worse I became, and the more likely I would have one of these attacks. I'm still living at home, you know, with my parents. You know, I'm not living much of a life, to be quite honest. And then things happen, don't they? You know, I got quite fed up with life, and I wanted to sort of make a recovery, and I was, you know, trying to figure out what I could do to recover. I started adult ballet lessons, but it was Pilates as well, but which I've been doing for a while, but this was Pilates and then ballet. But I just loved it, and it just got me back in contact with my body, actually sort of loving my body really, and the whole dance sort of thing. And I had a conversation with my brother-in-law, who's an obstetrician consultant, just about sickness behavior really, and about, you know, bad habits and recovery. And I sort of recognized a few of the sort of negative habits that I suddenly realized that I had accidentally fallen into myself, because I thought I was coping with it all admirably, but, you know, in hindsight I wasn't really. And it just so happened the TechCrunch article popped up on my timeline on Facebook, and I read it, and I thought, well, you know, this is all very interesting. Let's have a look at this. And I rang the pain clinic, and I said to them, look, have you heard of this app? Because, you know, it's a paid app, and I, you know, haven't got much money, and, you know, what do you think? And they were like, oh no, we don't recommend anything, because they're at the NHS. They, you know, have to be very careful anyway. But they recommended basically a pain diary, and I thought, well, that's no good. And I just thought, there's nothing to lose at this point. I'd listened to all the podcasts, and I was thinking this really made sense to me. So I started the subscription, and the rest is history. I got very, very interested. I mean, I'm a scientist by sort of trade, but I'm also creative as well. So I've got sort of two sides to me, but I love information. I love learning. So I really roared into it. I listened to all the podcasts. I went roaring around the internet, finding out as much as I could. And some of the stuff didn't really make sense to me. I'd read John Sarno's stuff before, but it was all very sort of related to back pain, and I hadn't really quite got on board with it. But then Curable started making a lot more sense to me, and I followed the links to the people on the podcast and researched them. I found Laura Mosley's stuff, which the pure neuroscience really appealed to me, because that to the scientist side of me, and that really, that the whole, that this is a brain misfunction basically made sense, and I could understand that this nerve going wrong in my face and my brain was, there's no tissue damage. I could really get on board with the no tissue damage side of it, and that it was a learned behavior. Over the years, I've got horses and dogs, and over the years I've done a lot of animal behavior work, because not having any physical strength and having big horses, they soon learn that they can do whatever they want. So I had to find a different way of teaching them. So we've gone down the positive reinforcement route. So conditioning, you know, I understood that, and so suddenly realized that all these triggers that you're told that Tian has, that when you touch your face, you know, light touch on the face causes pain. No, it doesn't. Your brain thinks it does, and it does, but it's a conditioned trigger. And I can now go out in the wind and rain, and, you know, I've spent 16 years covered up, not going out in the wind and the rain, because it hurt before, but now it doesn't. So the knowledge, understanding that, made a massive difference to me. It decreased my pain pretty much overnight. Not completely, but, you know, enough for me to think this was a goer, you know, that this was really making sense. And then I worked my way through the curable process. I mean, at first I did it quite fast. I did, you know, one of each exercise a day, and I still meditate every day. That's proved to be quite important for me. The meditation has been really good, and mindfulness, but it's the way the program works together. I'm driving again, so you know, for a lot of years I haven't driven. Now that's partly because I managed to decrease the drugs, but also confidence, activity. I mean, I was so unfit. I'd be, you know, lucky to sort of stagger down to the horses and back and do them, and then I'd sit around all day. And now I'm, you know, out on 5-kilometer walks every day, swimming loads of lengths. You know, it takes time, because, you know, I've got 17 years of unfitness to rehabilitate my body, and doing yoga once, twice a week, still doing the ballet, you know, swimming. It's the level of physical activity that is really good, and the fact that the pain has now gone. It's just, you know, I get the odd flare up. What we used to call the cluster headaches, I get them occasionally, and I get rid of them with half a sumatriptan tablet. I used to have to inject, and I would inject and have to go to bed for, you know, sort of 5 hours until it you know, it kicked in. Now I'm just like, oh, I'll take a sumatriptan. If I'm at home, I won't even do that. I'll meditate instead. But if I'm out and about and I'm not in a position to meditate, I'll give myself a pep talk and take half a tablet. And to be honest, it probably goes before the tablet actually kicks in, so it's probably a placebo effect, but you know, I'm getting there. But yeah, you know, I'd say if you're going to talk about pain levels, I'd be at about generally 2% of what I was before, if that.